From our studios in New York City, this is Charlie Rose.
We begin tonight with the election of the new Pope. Earlier today, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger of Germany was elected as 265th Pope and took the name of Benedict XVI. Shortly after the announcement, he appeared on the balcony of the Vatican Basilica to greet the people and deliver his first papal blessing.
Dopo il grande Papa Giovanni Paolo II, i signori cardinali hanno eletto me, un semplice, umile lavoratore nella vigna del Signore. Mi consola il fatto che il Signore sa lavorare e agire anche con strumenti insufficienti e soprattutto mi affido alle vostre preghiere.
Joining me now is Monsignor Lorenzo Albacete, professor of theology at St. Joseph's Seminary here in New York. He was a friend of Pope John Paul II. I am especially pleased to have him at this table to help us understand the selection of the new Pope and what it means for the Church. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Very good to see you again.
It's good to see you. Great.
Tell me, you expected this selection?
Yes, like everyone else. Certainly, Cardinal Ratzinger was a leading candidate, but frankly, I was not too sure that he would be elected. Because you've got to admit that he doesn't have a very good image. He has a serious image problem among a certain segment of the church. And after the triumphant gestures of John Paul II, so many people seemed attracted by him. I thought maybe the cardinals would worry about this image problem.
Now, what kind of image problem did he have?
Well, he was a reactionary, close-minded, intolerant, you name it. He's a monster against free thinking. His homily, his last homily, which was the one before the conclave, was said to be a blunt statement of the need to cut down newness, to find refuge in the old tradition, etc., which is completely false. This is not this man. This is not
Joseph
this man at all.
Is not that way.
No, Joseph Ratzinger is not that way. He had a job, though, that required attention to tradition, because the office that he headed in the Vatican is not exactly there to inspire new and imaginative thinking.
What office was that?
The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, the former Inquisition.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with something that whose task is to conserve. In a sense, that prevented him from showing the creative thinking that he has always been known for. I first heard of Joseph Ratzinger in 1968, the great year of the Revolution, and when I was a young and dashing scientist, surrounded suddenly by people who wonder how I could be a good scientist and claim to believe in transcendence, even less being a Catholic of all things. So I never had to answer that question. I thought an intelligent answer was required, and so I began to look around for texts, and I found this book by Joseph Ratzinger called Introduction to Christianity. And that book changed my life. Introduction to Christianity. The idea was you are going to look at this for the very first time. Get rid of all what you think you know what Christianity is, and let's look at it from point zero. This he wrote in 1968. The book came out again in the year 2000 with a new introduction, and he said, I withdraw nothing of what I wrote in 1968. In his latest book, which hasn't even been translated to any other language, it was in Italian because it is a dialogue with a non-believer, an Italian thinker and politician, on relativism and on the failure of Europe, the feared failure of Europe and of the West to stand up to the challenges of Islamic fundamentalism. And this is a conversation between the two. In that book, he repeats again, he says, the number one problem with Christianity today is that the Christian life is no longer convincing. It doesn't convince anyone. So his program is the formation of, he says, creative minorities throughout the world that would offer not words, but the witness of a life of full humanity, of peace, of joy, and so that people from what is a cruel world, he is convinced it is, will find a home in these communities. Now, this is exactly what was done in the history of the church by one man named Saint Benedict. Is it surprising that he has chosen Benedict?
Yeah, but you buy everything he said, do you not?
I certainly buy everything he said.
And
yes.
it changed your life, and you went from being a scientist into the
Well,
church.
I didn't. The priesthood was something else,
Yeah.
but it showed my thinking. It's guided the way I have approached what I believe.
And what was the essence of that thinking?
The essence of the thinking was precisely, the essence of the book is precisely that the Christian doctrines betoken a particular way of looking at life. For example, if you believe this, you will look at life this way. These things will be important to you. These will not be. That is to say, faith was related to experience. And this, I would say, Ratzinger would, the Holy Father now, Pope Benedict XVI would say, is what really neutralized Christianity as a presence in the world. The split between faith and experience of life. Faith became something otherworldly, something interior, emotional.
And experience of life became a promise.
Experience of life was something else, separate from faith.
Yeah.
And
he said that experience of life should reinforce faith, or faith should reinforce experience of life.
Faith and experience of life should correspond. Faith shapes how you see and experience life. This is what Saint Benedict did.
Okay, so you read all of this that he said.
I sure did.
You read all the things that have been written about him in certainly in the last month, when he became the most likely successor to your friend.
Yeah. Yes.
What's the true nature of the man that is
the
now
man
the Pope?
is a humble man. I see the words you said, the first words he said this morning are clear. A humble, simple servant of the Lord's vineyard. He is profoundly intelligent, but a very, very gentle man. Everybody who finally gets to meet him is stunned by that, because everybody goes through that image of the unbending German autocrat. And yet, I think you could even see it in the man's eyes, in his little smile, in introducing a brand new papal gesture, something like this. This is the first in the history of the papacy, perhaps the beginning of the downfall of everything. And I think he should go on a worldwide piano tour. He's a great pianist. And
really? He loves Mozart.
Oh, yes, and he plays it very well. If I was his public relations person, would recommend a piano tour.
Yeah.
And then people would see that this is
bring
not
the piano to the Mass. How about that?
Bring Mozart to the Mass. That's what he would like to do.
Is it possible, or better yet, what did your friend, the late Pope John Paul II, think of him?
Well, he is what he is because John Paul recognized in him a brilliant thinker and an articulator of his own theological position, which was from another tradition.
Yeah, so John Paul said, this guy and I are just like this. We believe the same thing.
Absolutely. There were differences in style.
Ratzinger says...
the Pope, when he finished writing anything, had to submit it to Ratzinger to make sure it was not inopportune or not perhaps semi-dangerous.
What the Pope wrote?
Oh, yeah. The head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith examines even the Pope. In the end, he can only say, no, Holy Father, I think this is perhaps a better phrase. In the end, the Pope can say, well, just get out of here.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's done to kind of make sure that, you're not putting in things that are that personal.
Pope John Paul II trusted him, admired him.
I'm sure.
They were friends.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think that had to do with his selection as his successor?
Oh, I think a lot.
Because everybody's feeling good about
I think
John Paul II.
It had to do a lot. After the Cardinal saw the spectacle, unbelievable spectacle we all saw after his death, and the worldwide reaction to it, and they realized that they really needed someone that was closely tied to that effort. You can't find an exact copy, obviously that would be disgusting even, but someone that is identified. See, Cardinal Ratzinger is a figure in a movement, if I want to call it that, within Catholic theology that began at the beginning of the 20th century, and it was the one that finally prevailed, if you wish, in the Second Vatican Council, only to see the great divisions emerge right after the Council. And yet they have continued this task, many from all around the world. Joseph Ratzinger was one of them, and one of the most brilliant exponents of this theological position. He was German. Modern theology, for its glory or its horror, originates in Germany. Modern philosophy originates in Germany again, for its great achievement and for its great problems. And Ratzinger comes from that world, and it's an amazing thing. I think it's awesome.
He's 79 years old.
78.
78, okay. 78.
Me, a young man.
Very.
The church is the only place in the world left for people like us. When we are like 63, oh my God, a child, we don't want him. He'll last forever. I felt so
I'm
good.
asking to read the minds of the cardinals. I mean,
don't think
they said we had this long reign with this pope, the longest in the
26 years.
26 years, one of the longest in the history of the church. Maybe we need to take a breath and get somebody in here who'll have a short reign, who's true to the principles of John Paul II, who's now being glorified in so many ways. And then we'll settle in and see who our next guy is.
Well, I think that was a factor. But after the funeral of John Paul II, I think that went down to the lowest in priority. And second, this is not this idea of a transitional. Are you kidding? This guy, if anything, realizes he's got a short time, so he's going to move fast.
He's going to get on with it.
Oh, yeah, he sure will.
What do you think he'll do?
Well, I'm sure he's thinking the same thing.
Well, of course, I know, but what do you think?
Well, first of all, he'll eventually, within a couple of months, have completely changed staff there. I think he will have a lot to say about streamlining the Roman Curia. And then he will, in August, I think he will have his first encounter with world youth. He will initiate programs of dialogue with other religions. He's very strong on that. And then what else do you do? I mean...
Wouldn't you think it'd be great if the Holy Father would sit down for an interview with people like me?
Oh, yeah, I would love to. Maybe I'm going to go to Rome in a couple of weeks. If I manage to see him, I may.
I would certainly.
You need Charlie Rose Esper. You got a big image problem.
No, don't say that. Just say, that this is an important time for someone to.
And he is very at ease with
this. To the church beyond the traditional means.
He is very at ease with this, and with interviews like this. There are many of the books are interviews that people made of him, journalists. He's very good at that.
Oh, so while he was a cardinal, he talked to a lot of journalists.
All the time,
and wrote books and played the piano.
Absolutely, yes. And, he is very favorite of the intellectual, serious non-believers, because he participates in many meetings with them, and they appreciate to see in him a spokesperson for the best of intellectual Catholicism, and recognize his simplicity. This is a big word, perhaps not a positive word for many people, but there is a simplicity of heart in this man that is almost childlike, and that strikes you because you're prepared to meet and yet this simple
man.
soul it's unbelievable.
Did you have a favorite?
Oh, look, what I most wanted, in addition to fidelity to Christ and everything, the most thing I wanted from the new Pope is that he would renew my parking permit at the Vatican.
No, you can't.
And I knew about 5 or 6 of these guys, and I knew they would... Well, they wanted to be faithful to Christ and keep the unity of the church, but that also would have helped. And he was among my list.
Lord God, and where's my parking?
I'm ruined. I shouldn't have done this or that. I'm ruined. I hope he's not watching this. What time is it in Rome?
You better go to confession before this night is over.
Okay.
So you're optimistic about this guy?
Yes. Well, yes, I don't know. Look, there is a curious thing, and that is that I am a man of faith.
Yes.
That is to say, this is not just a a fascinating worldly thing. It is that. I mean, the role he plays in the world, politics. But in the heart, this man is the successor of this fisherman, who was chosen by Jesus, who was not immediately obvious the best choice. The guy betrayed him, 3 times.
We're talking about Peter.
Yes, I'm talking about Peter. And it was not exactly a leading intellect, but to whom Jesus said, I entrust to you the unity of the church. You will be a rock.
I never understood why Jesus trusts somebody that betrayed him.
I don't know. I guess because he wanted to make sure that whenever future people would betray him, we wouldn't leave.
The church. What is the biggest challenge facing this new pope?
I think the biggest challenge facing this new pope is to develop a proposal to the world that will show the church and what the church proposes to be to generate a human culture that is less violent and less cruel than the present one.
Is he capable of that, leading the church in that direction?
No human being is. Christ is, the Holy Spirit is, and if he follows them, then the Lord will accomplish whatever he wants. In the end, that's what matters. But it will be interesting.
Many people had hoped that the Pope might come from Latin America because there are so many Catholics in Latin America.
Myself, I was ready for that too. But he didn't. I mean, in the end, you see, you have to choose. This is what is important in a serious, leaving all seriousness aside, as Steve Allen used to say. This is, you have to make, if you have a big family and you have all kinds of stuff, divisions, fights, arguments, and it's a huge zoo of a place, and there you are, and this family needs this, and so forth. But then suddenly you or someone you love develops a brain tumor. At that moment, what do you want in order to do your surgery? A great surgeon who understands your disease, or a family counselor?
A great surgeon.
You bet. This is what the cardinals looked at. They really realized that we are living in a moment in which, once again, what is at stake is what does it mean to be a human being?
A human being or a Christian?
A human being. A human being. No, not a Christian.
What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human
today? What does it mean to be human today? And what is the exact nature of our unity to transcendence and the mystery? All these things are up for grabs today. And so, if somebody who has studied this and can begin to formulate a proposal for this, I think they saw in this man the most competent of the whole bunch.
You think that's what happened? I looked around and said, this guy
understands the act. He knows exactly. He is the best surgeon that we have at this moment. And if he can sing and dance, fine, and we'll see. And as I say, he can play the piano. He should go. But that, in the end, is not what matters. It matters that does he understand the moment we are living through? I think he does.
Do you believe, for a lot of American Catholics, divorce is an issue? Women in the church is an issue?
Yeah.
Homosexuality is an issue?
Absolutely.
Is the church going to face up to these issues?
And it will face up to it, but at a level deeper than the questions have. The church will face up to it because for the church, these are expressions of even more fundamental questions, and they are really a question having to do with what is humanity. And in that sense, I think Pope Benedict XV is able to perhaps rephrase the question and bring the discussion, the dialogue with those who think the church has to change, bring it to a more fundamental level than what has become a political clash. And I have hope that can be done if the conditions for dialogue are there. If not, I don't think there's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of disillusioned people. Yes.
What does this priest who became a cardinal, who became pope, think of Islam?
I think he thinks that Islam obviously is an impressive part of the religious panorama of the world, that it is tied to Christianity and Judaism. It is a religion that's not just a religious sentiment, but that it belongs to those that believe in a revelation. And I think he would love to have a
dialogue?
A dialogue with that. But I think
wouldn't it be nice if, since your friend Pope John Paul II moved for a dialogue with Jews and apology, would it be nice now to see this cardinal try to come to dialogue with Islam?
I expect it, absolutely.
You do?
I do.
Because
I'm absolutely sure that
it is the priority and imperative of the world today.
Exactly. I think it's in the top points of his agenda. That must be one of them. I'm almost sure. And I think he'll carry it through pretty well.
What else do you think is on the top of his agenda that we haven't
To take
spoken
a
to?
nap, because it's been a long day. Other than to wonder where he can buy German beer or something. Having satisfied those, I think he will promote. I don't think he has a very high opinion of the Pope's ability to really change the world. I think he sees the Pope more as a facilitator that would provoke, that would move, prompt creative initiatives. Again, he uses that term. We need creative minorities to establish ways of life that are attractive to the people who experience the cruelty of today's world.
Do you believe that Pope John Paul II would be pleased with this choice?
I'm thrilled having a wild party up there.
Is he really?
Absolutely out of control, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he arranged it all.
He and the other popes
And the
are up
other
there.
kind, all those saints and everything. Hey, good stuff. I'm sure.
I certainly hope. Well, you knew the guy, so you...
Well, I'm telling you, absolutely, yes. And I don't, again, I don't know that I could say friendship with Ratzinger, but we have worked together for 20-something years.
So you know him?
Oh, yes. You want me to tell you? Maybe it's not prudent.
Please.
It's not
please.
prudent.
No, it is.
I'll regret it.
No,
and then
don't
in
worry.
the reruns, I'll always regret it.
Don't worry.
You know that he is a proponent of these movements. Okay?
Like what?
These movements that have risen in the church, these creative minorities, from very impressive ones to ones that one has never heard from. And once I was at a congress in which he was there to understand what this means, all these movements, and they have the whole list of them, and there was a huge number towards the end that were all called joy of something, like joie of a place. Joie de Lyon, it's like
Joy
a
of Lyon, France.
Joie de Paris. Joie, and I said, oh, well, look at that. And then he came over to me, and he said hi, and I said, oh, hi, Your Eminence, look, I'm very concerned. I am the founder of a movement, and it's not here. You haven't listed it here. He said, oh, what is your movement? I said, Joie de Times Square. He started laughing, and he said, what is your charism, namely your specialty? And I said, the Virgin. And he said, Our Lady. And I said, no, the Virgin Mega Store. That's over in times, it's open all night. That's where we meet. And that was his reaction. He had to order water. He probably thinks I'm just some big clown anyway. But.
Yes. Finally, in seriousness, how do you remember the late Pope? Because you knew him.
I don't feel he's gone. I feel him closer than ever. I don't have to remember him.
He's there for you.
He's here. Yeah.
A presence.
Absolutely. And I am very happy. It's a presence, and when I'm getting ready to pass the big one, to quote Fred Stanford, the big one, when I'm getting ready, it'll be thinking that he is there. Will be one of the things that will help me stretch my hand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you back.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.